What's up, guys? It's a junior analyst. The decision had been unanimous like Bala Muhammad. Therefore, I am back again with another video. As you guys can see in the thumbnail and title of this video, today we're here to discuss Dominick Cruz and Daniel Cormier. They who people often refer to as some of the GOATs. We still have people till this day claiming Dominick Cruz is the bantamweight GOAT in the big 2026. And there are still people buying into the Daniel Cormier propaganda of him saying that he will feast the light heavyweight division today alive because there are no wrestlers. Today I'm here to tell you guys just how wrong and absolutely ridiculous these statements are. First of all, let's start with Daniel Cormier, because this actually makes me so upset. Daniel Cormier had came out somewhat recently and claimed that he would be feasting on the light heavyweight division nowadays because there are no wrestlers, and we have some MMA YouTube old heads like the Weasel agreeing with his statements. This is just unacceptable. I'm sorry if you're a diehard DC fan, but prime for prime, he's 100% getting butchered, pieced up by Alex Pereira. Daniel Cormier's MMA grappling had always been extremely overrated in my opinion. Yes, he had great wrestling accolades. Yes, he was an Olympic silver medalist. Yes, this and that. Yes, we've seen highlights of him flipping Alexander Gustafsson, throwing Jon Jones, and ragdolling Dan Henderson. But they are highlights for a reason. I don't know why so many people act like DC is Khabib Nurmagomedov on the map. If you look at his UFC record, the only person he took down more than 3 times was Derrick Lewis. It's just Derrick Lewis, man. Daniel Cormier was a freestyle wrestler, and his skill sets in MMA grappling just ends there. He has no jiu-jitsu, no back tates. He does not advance to good positions when he gets his opponents to the ground, unlike his Dagestani best friends. And he has even said it out loud himself that he does not like the MMA rule set because, quote him, quote DC, if you take a person down and the round ends, you have to start the whole process over again of taking him down, and it's exhausting. Daniel Cormier was so fat that he does not even have the cardio to initiate that many takedowns in a fight. That's why you would see most of his fights ends up being a striking match, which his primary weapon is boxing with a 5'10" frame in a light heavyweight and heavyweight division. If he had fought Alex Pereira, the only chance he would have is in the very first round, where they're both fresh and dry, and he will have to finish Pereira in the first round on the ground, which is very unlikely. Once past the first round, Daniel Cormier will be food, will be Popeye's chicken for Alex Pereira. In my opinion, he almost stands zero chance against Pereira, and it's crazy how DC says that the light heavyweight division sucks right now because there's no wrestlers. One of the known wrestlers in question back in the days when he was champion was fucking Ryan Bader, who would not be anywhere near the top 5 today, Rashad Evans, who should have been a middleweight, and Corey Anderson, who would be in Bellator. It's just crazy to me that no one ever thought of the fact that maybe there's no wrestlers because wrestling is no longer the most effective base in mixed martial arts nowadays. Now let's move on and talk about DC's best wins. In my opinion, his best wins are against Stipe Miocic, Volkan Ozdemir, and Alexander Gustafsson. Well, the Gustafsson fight was super close and honestly probably could have gone either way, but still a good win nonetheless. But outside of that, a lot of his wins are not so great. His first win against Anthony Johnson was legit, but the second time they fought was the fight where Rumble retired afterwards, and he chose to essentially through the fight. If you guys have seen that fight, you know what I'm talking about. He came against DC by coming in with a heavy wrestling game plan that ended up getting himself submitted. Derrick Lewis could never be a great win for anyone, and DC could not even finish an Anderson Silva, who was on a 3-fight losing streak and was a middleweight moving up on short notice. Post leg break. Anyways, overall, DC was a great fighter and he had many accolades to back up his accomplishment. But I do think his legacy was overrated and people give his MMA grappling, emphasizing MMA grappling way too much credit. And I will say it again. He would get brutally chinned by Alex Pereira if they have fought each other in both heavyweight and light heavyweight, in my opinion. Well, now we're done with the first DC. Now it's time for us to move on to the other DC, Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz is another fighter where people just overglaze. I cannot fathom how there's still people thinking he's the bantamweight GOAT, where there's Petr Yan, Merab Dvalishvili, and Aljamain Sterling. Dominick Cruz's best wins are over Demetrius Johnson, which is great, Joseph Benavidez, Uriah Faber, and TJ Dillashaw. Well, these are good wins. There's still iffy parts in them, in my opinion. First of all, Demetrius Johnson and Joseph Benavidez are flyweights. They should have never been fighting at 135 at the time. The Demetrius Johnson win is still impressive. However, if you looked at the fight, there was at least a 15-pound difference between the two of them. At least. And Cruz looks like he was twice the size of DJ and Joseph Benavidez. Uriah Faber was a good win during those times, but nowadays, Faber would not fare well with the modern-day bantamweights. And the TJ Dillashaw fight really could have gone either way. It was a very close fight. I think Cruz had an interesting style where it worked when the fight game was not as evolved as it is nowadays. And he had good wrestling to neutralize powerful opponents and tire them out. He had great cardio as well. But his style, I believe he would not do so well in the modern bantamweight division, where there are a bunch of well-rounded fighters and a lot of fighters who can track down his unorthodox footwork. His footwork would not fare well against the likes of Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen, Petr Yan, and his wrestling is not nearly as good as Merab, Umar, or Aljamain Sterling. Overall, I think Daniel Cormier and Dominick Cruz was fighting at the right time with their according skill sets and against the right people. But people tend to overrate their fighting abilities because of their accomplishments. To the old heads watching this video, I would like to take this chance and apologize to absolutely nobody. And I am not saying that these two aren't good fighters for the time, but I believe that they're not the GOATs of the sport or top 5 of all time by any means whatsoever. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm going to try and pump out as much content as I can for your entertainment, and peace out.